Hello everyone, and welcome to Mr. This is Asia, and here's Kazakhstan. Now let's have a look, shall we? Kazakhstan is the 9th largest nation in the world, and when exactly the first human beings set foot in its vast, seemingly boundless steppes can't be known exactly, but they were hunters tracking their prey in the languid retreat of the Ice Age, and life was rough and cold and hard. During the era of the Botai culture, the ancients of the region became the first people to domesticate the horse. Over the centuries, numerous tribes inhabited the area, nomadic pastoralists and bronze workers. The region also saw the rise of prominent Iranian civilizations, such as the Saka and more famously, the Scythians, feared, fearsome fighters, proficient horseback archers, and masters of the broad plains. What's pleasantly surprising about the Scythians is their astonishing skills in metalwork. They crafted items of such intricate delicacy as to shut the mouths of those who dismissed them as mere uncouth barbarians. More centuries slipped by to the sound of the wind and hooves in the fields, and one day the breezes brought the music of a Turkic tongue as the Göktuks migrated into the land from the east, bringing with them the worship of the sky god Tengri. And you didn't want to make Tengri angry. These ancient Turks by the 570s ruled an enormous slab of the continent before quarrels and wars saw them splitting into two halves in 603, both of which would end up conquered by Tang dynasty China. The 8th century saw contact with Arab Muslims, who introduced Islam to Central Asia, which today remains the majority religion of the region. The 1200s saw the land completely conquered by the Mongols under Genghis Khan and absorbed into his sprawling empire. Such an elephantine expanse of earth inevitably ended up divided. The land we're concerned with fell to the western Mongol domain, called the Golden Horde. Over time, the horde became less Mongol and more Turkic, and in the 1300s, the leader accepted Islam. The latter 14th century saw the Golden Horde devastated by the armies of the Turco-Mongol conqueror Timur, and the state fractured into smaller pieces. One of these pieces was called the Uzbek Khanate. Khan, of course, is a word for ruler. Many did not like the Uzbek way of doing things, however, and in about 1465, under the leadership of two brothers, some 200,000 people broke away from them and migrated here, where they became known as Kazakhs, a name possibly deriving from the Turkic word for wanderer, free and independent. The Uzbeks were not happy, and what do you suppose happened? That's right, a dance competition. No, of course not. War. It's always war. And the Kazakhs won and remained free and independent. The following years saw more wars with the Uzbeks, in which the Kazakhs gained more land for their own nation, the Kazakh Khanate, which reached its greatest extent in the 1500s under Qasim Khan, when the Kazakhs were lords of the steppes, just like the Scythians had been so many centuries earlier. From the 1600s onward, the Kazakh state trickled into tripart tribal division. This naturally weakened the state as a whole, and it suffered attacks from various neighbors, including a western Mongol people called the Zhungar. The Kazakhs achieved victories over the invaders under Abulkhair Khan, and the Zhungar were eventually decisively defeated by the Chinese, who ordered their genocide in the 1750s. The Kazakhs still faced incursions from surrounding nations, and themselves raided other nations for slaves, but they eventually succumbed to the might of the Russian Empire, who took control of Kazakhstan in the 1800s. Russian settlers started moving in, and big changes started occurring in the country, to the resentment of many Kazakhs, who saw their traditional mode of life threatened by the steady introduction of modernization. The Kazakhs instigated a number of uprisings, which were quashed. So Russian rule continued, and 1916 saw another large rebellion flare up, in which Russian settlers were slaughtered, prompting the Tsar's troops to storm in and machine gun the insurgents without mercy, killing well over 100,000 Kazakhs. When the Russian Empire fell to the communists after the 1917 revolution, the Kazakhs jumped at the opportunity at establishing an independent state, but it only lasted till 1920, when the Russians returned, this time with red stars on their caps, and Kazakhstan became part of the Soviet Union. Unhappy years followed as Kazakhstan was not spared from the disastrous Soviet economic policies that plagued its populace in the 1920s and 30s, and some 1.5 million Kazakhs, perhaps more than 2 million, died from a devastating famine that some scholars label genocide. The Soviet authorities pushed for further agricultural development in Kazakhstan, a campaign supported by Dinmukhamit Konaev, who dominated Kazakh politics for over 20 years in the Soviet era, a man of wisdom and remarkable administrative ability. He steered Kazakhstan into better times, overseeing the nation's entrance into increased wealth and improved standards of living. As the Soviet Union fell apart, Kazakhstan was the last Soviet republic to declare independence, which it did in December 1991. Nursultan Nazarbayev, was elected first president and led the nation as a dictator until 2019, in which time Kazakhstan's economy boomed due to the nation's lucrative oil and energy sectors. While issues such as the country's human rights record are not viewed favorably by various organizations, Kazakhstan is improving and has seen many advancements and attained a very high level of human development and is the wealthiest nation in Central Asia. But what sits ahead for Kazakhstan? Comment below, but for now, bye-bye!